Join spiritual feminist and empowerment coach Joni Advent Maher for Trust Your Sacred Feminine Flow. Listen in for intimate conversations about money, transformation, and feminine sovereignty. And now, your host, Joni Advent Maher.
Welcome to Trust Your Sacred Feminine Flow. I'm your host, Joni Advent Maher, mystic, spiritual midwife, and transformational guide. And today I'm delighted to welcome Helen Hodgson. Welcome, Helen.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted that you asked me to be here today.
Yes, well, I am so delighted that you said yes. I have followed you and your work for a few years at least, and I recently saw that you were diving into a book, the Mirabai Starr book on the feminine mystics.
Yes.
And I said, oh boy, here's a kindred spirit. Here's a kindred sister.
Yeah, I've taken a few classes with Mirabai, actually.
Ah, wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Well, I want to dive into all that, but I do also want to just share with our listeners just some of your background and your bio. So we'll get back into all that in just a moment. But Helen is an author, and she's the founder of Transformational Goddess Retreats. And she learned after years of watching her mother, who was a nurse, registered nurse, and mother of 5, that as caretakers, women are often the last ones to nurture themselves. And she swore she wouldn't journey the same path. But as a nurse and a massage therapist herself, she did experience the same overgiving and neglect of her own needs. And it wasn't until the awakening with the goddesses through a pilgrimage to the mythical birthplace of Aphrodite, and is it Pathos or Pathos?
Yes.
Pathos. On the island of Cyprus, that she was inspired to not only practice self-love on a much deeper level for herself, but also become an advocate for empowering all women. So let's breathe that in. Whew. Yeah, so Aphrodite became the symbol of the sacred feminine in Helen's life, the bringer of empowerment, of clarity and strength. And she believes that we are all connected to a lineage of sacred feminine power, a power told in the ancient mythologies and stories of the goddesses. And so from this basis, her mission has become to guide women to practice extreme, underline extreme, self-care and self-love using the ancient wisdom of the goddesses and feminine mystics. And that's how Transformational Goddesses Retreats was born. Let's pause there. That's because that's a lot to digest. Yes. So how long has it been since you've been kind of in this active journey with the feminine?
Actually, it's about 25 years, Joni. And I must say,
Wow.
there's something about when somebody else reads your bio. I'm sitting here listening to you read my bio, and I have goosebumps all over my body. And I just wanted to thank you for reading it so beautifully, so reverently, and for acknowledging the divine feminine wisdom in all of us. Yes. I just wanted to just thank you for that.
My deep pleasure. And again, I think some of it is really just that recognition of what is coming through you and the service that you provide on behalf of all women to remember our feminine, our sacred feminine nature. So
yes, and Layne Redmond, who for those of you who don't know, she wrote When the Drummers Were Women. It's a spiritual history of rhythm This is one of my favorite quotes from her, and it's on my website, Transformational Goddess Retreats. Women need the archetypal image of a divine female.
Mm.
We need to reconnect with this inherent sacredness of woman as creator and nourisher, rather than accept a vision of ourselves as less than divine inferiors.
Mm. Yes, that is so powerful.
Yes, because we, our stories have been buried. We've been burnt at the stake for speaking up and speaking out. We have been mistrusted. We have been feared. And it's no wonder we struggle with taking care of ourselves, because it's, our lineage is based on all this history. There are plenty of very powerful women, mystics, and goddess archetypal wisdom that is there for all of us to discover and take that strength and wisdom for ourselves. And as a struggling massage therapist well, when I say struggling, I wasn't struggling to make money. I was very busy. In fact, I was overly busy, and that's why I was getting burnt out. A, because I couldn't say no, or I didn't know how to say no gracefully. I felt I had to take care of everybody else, my husband including, and put myself second, as you mentioned in the bio. And I was making the same mistake over and over again. What would happen is I would have a very full schedule, barely giving myself a day off. And when I did have a day off, I was too exhausted to enjoy it. I felt like a toxic waste dump, because I was, clearing everybody's energy. And then, the physical demands of massage therapy that, it puts on your body. And I would go on like that for about 3 months, and then I would hit the wall, and my immune system, of course, was overtaxed. And I would have to spend days in bed recovering. So I'd have to cancel all my clients. I'd be losing money being self-employed. And this just went on for too many times. And I can still see myself lying in bed with my phone in one hand, canceling all the clients, feeling terrible that I'd let people down, of course, because this is part of the, not feeling that I was important enough to have the day off, or that it was that lack mentality of thinking if I said no, then they would go to another massage therapist. All that energy, that we put on ourselves. And I just thought, if I want to make changes, I've got to break this pattern. What am I going to do? So I was already getting more interested in the goddesses and the archetypes. And, I read a lot. I read Shinoda, Jean Shinoda Bolen's, the archetypes in women. And, I was studying all that stuff. And then I came upon Aphrodite. And when I read all about the women that related to her archetypal energy, I'm like, okay. I became, the light bulb went off, and I'm like, Aphrodite means self-love. She's been exploited by the Western world, and that she was just the sexual goddess. She was a lot more than that. A lot more than that. And I, dug deeper, and I recognized that she was the one that was going to make me change my habits and dive deeper into self-love and reverence.
So is that what prompted you to make the pilgrimage?
Yes. Yeah. My sister, I'm originally from the United Kingdom. So my sister had a friend in Cyprus, and while this was all going on, she sent me a message and said, I'm going to Cyprus. Do you want to join me? We've got I have a place to stay. I was like,
Wow.
hello. Yeah. And the universe, when you start, putting it out there and you're congruent in that you stay on mission, then of course all these opportunities show up right on your lap. So I said yes. It's a long journey from the United States, a lot closer if I'd lived in England.
Yes.
So off we went, and I had the opportunity of having 2 weeks on the island, and went to all her sacred sites, went to her baths. One of the myths in the Aphrodite myths is that she would renew herself and be rebirthed every year. She would bathe in the sacred waters. And that is one place. And then the rock, of course, is where she, in ancient mythology, where she was birthed out of the waters. We visited there too. And there's something about that island there. You can feel her love energy. Every time I was in water, or even when I was in the shower, I could hear singing. It was quite an enlightening experience on many levels.
Wow.
And of course I want to go back, and I would love to do one of my retreats there. That would be something, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would.
Yes. Yes, to take women, on a sacred pilgrimage, using all the wisdom that I've cultivated and generated from my study, and then to actually go to the sites. Yeah.
So it sounds like she began to mentor you, or you began to receive from her.
Yes. And I have, I've written another little ebook on the 5 steps to get in touch with Aphrodite, which is self-love, being the top one, and seeing beauty even when it doesn't exist, because as a alchemical goddess that she was, she gets, which I find is very interesting, in that what I'm doing and what you're doing too, as because we're changing, right? We're creating alchemy in the clients and the people that we touch.
Yes.
And Aphrodite, that's what she did. She was an alchemical goddess. She changed people within. And one of the other famous myths, the Psyche and Eros myth, she made Psyche go through all these stages, the 4 stages, to allow her to have Eros as her husband. And it was all about standing in your truth, standing in your power, making decisions that empower you and that you put yourself first. I mean, it's all in line. It's all in tune. Yeah.
Wow. So really coming into your wholeness and fullness and partnering from there rather than from that place of lack.
Aphrodite already knows her innermost desires. And whatever she yearns to have accomplished, she accomplishes it. No excuses.
Yeah, I'd like to bathe in that.
Yes.
Like marinate in that for a while.
Exactly. And it's a process. I mean, it's a transformational process. It's not going to happen overnight. I mean, it took me a long time of making the same mistakes. It's like, we have to be broken first before we're going to make changes, right? It's, and we have to be open to admit there is a problem.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we have to be willing and receptive and humble in those ways.
Yeah. And then you look at the feminine mystics, Mary Magdalene, of course, is another one. She didn't ask if she could lead. She just led.
Yes, she did.
And another example of a feminine story that was buried and changed and not revered and not trusted, by the other apostles, because she was a woman.
Right. And certainly just looking at how she's been maligned.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, that deep sense of mistrust or trying to denigrate or bring the feminine down, she I think in many ways is like emblematic of what's possible in terms of owning your power and standing in your power, and also the pushback and the the heat that came with that.
Oh yeah. I mean, the founding fathers of Christianity, they completely changed the true teachings, excluding women. Yeah.
Yes. So I feel inclined just to name, because this is actually the first time that I've ever spoken to someone specifically about the goddesses, the mystics, and as you said, there is such value in finding not only the female form or face of God, but doing an initiation or a mentorship with these various goddesses or mystics or ascended masters, that we each have elements in our lives that do need that healing, and that there are so many possibilities for these feminine beings that can help shepherd us or mentor us through the healing process.
Absolutely.
Yes. And I know you have done retreats on so many of the goddesses, not just Aphrodite, but Artemis and Persephone and Demeter and Kali and Sehkmet. And so how are you inspired when you're offering your next retreat? How do you know?
What is very interesting is it has in the past, well, let me back up. The last 2 years, the impetus has been on our political climate. Surprise.
Okay.
Yeah. So 2 years ago, it was Kali and Sehkmet.
And can you say a little bit more about those goddesses for those that don't know?
Yes. Kali is the Eastern goddess, and she is a very fierce goddess, and she eats demons, which
for breakfast.
For breakfast, right? And then Sehkmet is the Egyptian goddess, and she is all about power and strength. So what I was feeling in the political climate, which a lot of us were feeling, was the feminine was being yet again crushed and taken away, our rights taken away, and so there was this feminine rising. I mean, it was everywhere, right? We were marching in the streets. I mean, the first year I went on the march here in Los Angeles. I know the women's marches were everywhere, and this is the Time's Up movement started, and then of course it was the Me Too movement. So I was just feeling for myself, that this rising, and I thought, oh my goodness, I have to create something that we can, pour our energy in and pour our, turn our frustration into something so that we can take action, because there's nothing worse than feeling helpless, right?
Yes.
And to become an activist, whatever that looks like for you, if it's just, holding hands with a sister in a circle, or going on a march, or, going abroad and, taking action, we can all take some form of action, because if we don't, we become helpless. And unfortunately, that is what happens a lot, is we feel helpless. We don't know where to turn. And then there's no action. And then we're back to square one again, feeling denigrated and marginalized, and that we don't matter when we do matter. We are 51% of the population. We matter. So that's why I chose Kali and Sehkmet. And I was very fortunate to have a very good friend who had been studying Kali, and she had done, she'd written and performed a one-woman show on her initiation into Kali.
Wow.
And so she performed her performance for us in the evening, and was incredible. And it was a true story.
Wow.
And then I had a friend who did a lot of voice empowerment. She'd done classes, so I invited her, and we used Sehkmet, and we, created songs around Sehkmet, and did some, get your voice heard, get your voice, realign your throat chakra, to gain strength, so it was all about it. It was a real sort of power, empowerment retreat. So go ahead, sorry.
I just was going to say, the thing that I love about Sehkmet, and I feel like she has kind of passed through my life from time to time, is that she is in the form of a lioness. And so to any extent that you identify either with that big cat energy, or could value or appreciate having that kind of backing or support, I love Sehkmet for that.
Yes. Yeah. And, if you want to be able to speak up and feel more confident in voicing your opinions. I mean, my mother, we are a product, right? We're our mother's child. Even the voice just croaked up then. My mother's no longer with me, but I never heard my mother really voice her opinion. My father was quite domineering.
Yeah.
And if we don't have that, we don't learn. How do we learn to speak up? And it's not until we're in sacred circle, or we go on a retreat, or we're nurtured, by a coach, or somebody else. It's not we have to learn. It's not it's not going to come out naturally if we haven't learned it from a young child.
That is absolutely right. I think sometimes there are like the rarest of exceptions of that, people who just cannot hold their tongue and will speak up regardless. But they are the rare exception. And by and large, most of us, and sometimes it's also, I would say, just the issue of the freeze response, when we talk about the physiological response of fight, flight, or freeze. I think sometimes we are just, as women, frozen in some degree of fear to voice what's true, or to voice our opposition or our anger, or even just to say, I don't like this. This isn't working for me.
Yeah, because it's when you look back and, like I mentioned earlier, our history, we were burnt at the stake.
Right. So both in our DNA and
in our DNA,
in our spiritual legacies and psychic legacies, we're still unwinding that. We're still healing that. So it is this woman by woman claiming our voice and speaking our truth.
Yes. And having a supportive circle so we can practice.
Yes.
We can hear ourselves. We can feel confident, and little, step by step with support, we can get there.
Yes. And even to start out just speaking, even if we're kind of shaking as we speak, that's how we get to that point of feeling that confidence and clarity and ability to just say, this is the way it is.
And it takes practice. I'm still learning.
I'm with you there. I am with you there.
Yes.
So can you tell us about what you're visioning for your next retreat, or when that might be?
Yes. Yeah. My next retreat is May of 2020. And it is, I am doing Aphrodite again. Only because, well, we need love. Not only because, not only because, should I say?
Yes.
Not only because we need more love on our planet right now. We need love for the planet, for Mother Earth. We need to take back the reverence for all that she gives us. She gives us our home. She gives us the air that we breathe, the plants that we eat, the water that we drink. But Aphrodite was known as an ancient bee goddess.
Oh, yes. Yes. Tell us about that.
Yes. So she was this Cybele was one of the ancient goddesses that you will see on vases, Greek vases from like the 5th century, holding the drum. Now it's called the frame drum, and it is the oldest archetypal instrument that was originally played by the women. Women were in charge of all the ceremonies, the rites, all the season changes, the equinoxes, the moon, and they were responsible for honoring these sacred times through singing and dancing and playing the frame drum. And the frame drum, like any drumming, balances your right and left hemispheres in your brain. It gets you alters your state of consciousness. It gets you closer to the divine because you are changing your consciousness. So I'm teaching the frame drum. I'm teaching the heart of frame drumming, which includes how to honor the elements through the different strokes on the drum, and how to use your voice and chant when you're playing the drum, and how to embody the rhythm in your body through stepping. There's only 1% of drummers that can sing and dance or step and play the drum at the same time. And frame drummers do that. And Layne Redmond, I mentioned her in the beginning, that wonderful quote, and her book, When the Drummers Were Women. She spent 10 years studying all these ancient images of all these gods and goddesses playing the frame drum, and discovered that 90% of the images were women. And that's how she discovered that it was always the women that were in charge of all these rites.
So is this the first time that you will have done that, or that you're...
Yes, teaching the frame drum. Yeah, so I've been studying the frame drum about 5 years now. I have a teacher here in Los Angeles who was one of Layne Redmond's students, because Layne Redmond passed away about 5 years ago of cancer, unfortunately. And she was so devoted to drumming and feminine wisdom through the drum and through the chakra system. She was a yogini. I mean, this woman was this was her life. And she, spent all those 10 years looking at all the images, and then discovering the connection with the bees, the ancient, the bees, the culture of bees, and how it still is, of course, female dominant. It's a female run organization, community, and how the drum and the bees are connected, because it's the hum, the buzz that bees make. The drum is connected to the hum. The drum. Oh, I just realized that rhymes. The drum is connected to the hum.
Wow.
The first sound that we hear is our mother's blood rushing through the arteries when we're in the womb, right?
Wow. Yes.
So when you strike the drum, it takes us back to that place of knowingness, the place, our first place, our first home, which is in our mother's womb.
Wow.
And it's the closest to the hum that bees make. So I will be weaving in the bees, the frame drum, with the Aphrodite wisdom, because I really feel that the frame drum is a tool for women in transition, a tool for women who want to make change in their life. It's a tool of remembrance. We're also playing for all the other women who can't play the drum, or with the onset of Christianity in Europe, women were forbidden to drum and sing.
Wow.
And dance. So our rights were taken away from us even back then, and thousands of years ago, because it was seen as provocative and enticing. So
yes, well, it also seems to me just taking away that right to express yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is so it's like
Yeah.
I can just feel the bind, I can
Yes.
feel the bind of that. And so to free for you to bring into that retreat setting this drumming, and to really free that and to reclaim it is very powerful.
Yes. And what women will walk away with, of course, is a tool of empowerment, something that they can carry on learning about. And then also honoring the elements through each of the strokes. There was a Nubian singer and frame drum player that Layne Redmond met, and he was the one that introduced the fact that each of the drum strokes represent the elements. So because of our political climate and because of our ecology, we've lost the connection to our home and Mother Earth, right? If we only could recognize and honor our sacred feminine, which is to me Mother Earth, then we would have a deeper reverence, and we wouldn't be doing the things that we're doing that's causing the problem right now.
Right.
And of course, women, we're more inherently connected to the elements. We're connected to the moon cycles, through our menstrual cycle. I mean, there used to be 13 months in the year. We didn't always have 12 months. The moon cycles were governed, or our menstrual cycle was all in tune with the moon cycles. And that's why, we're more connected to nature than men.
Yes.
Because of this,
Right. Well, there's also, it's just that power center of the womb space, and
yes,
and even the connection of the heart space, that
yes,
it just our center of gravity, so to speak, is closer to the earth and to the elements. And I'm just struck by kind of the wholeness of how this frame drumming holds the whole, so to speak.
Yeah, and the thing that Layne Redmond discovered too was a lot of the ancient drums were, the lotus flower was painted on the drums too, which represents the womb, and just the dot in the middle, which is the bindi dot, which represents the womb. So there's all these things, all these sacred images that tell stories, right? This is before we were writing. It was all in picture form. So everything was she was just discovering more through the images, what was going on at those times.
So will the retreat happen in the LA area?
It's going to be in Ojai, which is about, I don't know if anybody knows Ojai, but it's a very spiritual place. It's about 2 hours outside of Los Angeles. I don't typically do it in Los Angeles because I want to have people to have a little journey, to get there, to get outside. Because if we can leave our outside life for the weekend, that's when all the transformation starts. Because if we're tied to our everyday life, then we're too connected to it.
So if someone were interested in just kind of getting their name on a list for
Mm-hmm.
when registration happens, what would be the best way for them to do that, Helen?
Well, they can go to the website, Transformational Goddess Retreats.com,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a contact us page there. I also have a gift for everybody today, the 5
Yes.
Secrets to Living a Life You Love, Remedies for Women Who Give Too Much. So I know you'll be including that link somewhere. So that will also get you on the mailing list. I'm on Instagram and Facebook too. So if you're in either one of those places, I'm sure you'll come across a message that I'll share, an announcement or two, or, but certainly getting on the list would be the, most direct route.
Yes. Well, I do want to give a shout out and recommend that people do follow you either or both on Instagram or Facebook, because I always love, for example, when you make your live videos. You recently did one of you drumming and singing, and it's a taste of the sacred, in the middle of the day when you're scrolling through your feed. So I highly recommend following. Well, I guess it's not Helen, it's under Transformational Goddesses Retreats.
It's just Goddess, just
Goddess.
Singular. Yeah.
Okay.
It's and actually
I can add that as well.
Oh, great. That would be perfect. Yeah. Because the Instagram page is, there was too many letters for Transformational Goddess Retreats, plural. So I had to lop off the S on retreats. So it's just retreat.
Okay.
But I have the Facebook page as well. But yeah, if you include those, that would be great.
I absolutely will. I will. So I know you mentioned the overgiving theme, and one of the questions I love to ask is just if you could go back and have a sit down with your younger self from your vantage point of wisdom today, what would you want her to know, or what would you love to transmit to her?
Wow, then I'm going to have to take a deep breath there. So I would say so many things, of course, but I know we want to encapsulate that into a message.
Yeah, just a truth that.
Yeah. You don't have to do it all alone. It's not a sign of weakness to ask for help. It's a sign of strength to ask for help. And that you are a divine child of the goddess. You are loved. And that you lead from your heart. And don't let anybody take that away from you.
And if I may ask, how old is this younger version of you?
I think she's around 35.
I love that. Yeah, that's such an age where we're really trying to be be grown up and do what we think we're supposed to do. Where there's so much striving
Yeah. And I also, it's going to be my 60th birthday in a couple of months. So I'm really looking forward to stepping into that juicy crone era, which is, the wise giving back time of a woman's life. We have the maiden, the mother, and the crone. And I actually went through a very early menopause at 41.
Wow.
I'm not a mother. And that was actually at the time when I created my other company, which I sold this year, which was Serve the Goddess.
Mm.
So I started that when I was a massage therapist. So that was another awakening period in my life that I used the goddesses to help me through that. And my awakening was to see the power and the of being in menopause and not to be afraid of it, because it is a time when it's a wake-up call for women. I think it's like, okay, the children have left home, now what? This is your chance. This is the third act of your life, typically, right? It usually happens in the, around 60 or 80, 50.
50s.
Yeah, 50s. So it is, and that's oftentimes when women will recreate themselves. They'll start a new business.
Right.
Look at all the women who start businesses in their 50s.
Absolutely. Especially now.
Yeah, especially now. So for the younger women who are listening, thinking that, 50 is old or 60 even, then it's actually, when you get there, it's not, because it's like, this is when your wise time comes. And this is the time usually when, like I said, you go through menopause, so you're not bleeding anymore. And this is the time that you're retaining that sacred blood and you're giving back. You're sharing your wisdom. You're creating women's retreats or women's circles. You're leading the path for younger women who are lost, or need direction. You're sharing the mistakes you made, so that you can. Because to me, we go through we have our own journeys and our transformation. What is it if we can't share it?
Exactly.
Exactly.
What is it? And I do believe most women feel a call to share it, by and large, that once they've had a profound healing or transformation, they do feel called to share it. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking back to the feminine mystics and how you look at Mary Magdalene, who is seeing visions. You look at Hildegard von Bingen. She was an 11th century nun that was so ahead of her time. She knew all about the chakra systems. She was an artist. She even knew about the divine sexual union between a man and a woman when she was clearly, a virgin. She composed songs. This woman was incredible. And she had all these visions. And she was lucky that she didn't, die as a result of it. Because, the fathers could have seen that as being disrespectful.
Yes.
But she was lucky.
Yeah, she was lucky, and we are lucky.
And we are lucky, yeah. And it was her birthday yesterday, by the way.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
What?
Yes.
So that was the 17th.
17th of September, yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah, I have a Canticles of Ecstasy.
Oh, yes, me too.
Yes, which I listen to daily, actually.
You do? Me too. And
you
in
do?
fact, yeah, I do. And I'm in 2 choirs, and I'm going to sing one of her chants at our holiday concert. I'm learning it right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I wanted to, again, open the women that I'm in the choir with, open their eyes and hearts to Hildegard von Bingen, because, I didn't know who she was either, probably 5 years ago, but taking Mirabai Starr's classes, and learning about her, and amongst all the other feminine mystics as well. Just being immersed in the poetry and the wisdom and the chants and the beauty of and the acknowledgement to the healing power of nature. And
Yes.
greening, as Hildegard von Bingen called it, greening.
Yes.
That's when our true healing comes about, is being in nature. And stones, sacred stones too. She was healing people with herbs. She wrote, Hildegard von Bingen, she wrote, I think it was like 5 books on herbology.
Wow.
In a short period of time, that there's no way she could have done all the research. So in other words, she was getting all this, she was getting the vision, she was getting
Downloads.
wisdom, downloads. Yeah.
Wow.
Incredible.
Yes. So we're almost at the end of our time, but I feel,
Oh, no.
yeah, I know it's been really rich, and I love your depth and breadth of wisdom on this subject.
Thank you.
I really love that you're sharing that with us. And somehow I feel called to circle back to your mother and to your legacy. And I don't know, I don't know. There's something about that. I'm just meant to bring her up again. And so I don't know if is there anything meaningful in my naming her and in the context of all of this?
Yes, that was very insightful, Joni. My mother's legacy was kindness. And that's why I talk about leading from the heart and not to over intellectualize things. I think sometimes we can do that and not trust our intuition.
Yes.
Because that's where our altar of love is, our heart center.
Yes.
And that's where we reside as women. We're we are the carers. We are the ones that will protect our young ones and the planet. And that's what I hope my legacy is too, is my kindness. And that comes through in all the different mediums that we've talked about.
Yes.
And of course the ancient wisdom of the goddesses. But is kindness. Be kind.
Yeah, so I can feel my heart space just warming up as you say that, and I feel the kind of the blessing and the gift of both the ability to be kind and also have that strength or inner safety or permission to also speak up, that we can now hold both, and I dare say that is part of your legacy as well. It's the both of those elements. All right. Well, is there anything else before we bring this to a close that you're called to share?
Well, I wanted to thank you for inviting me, and I would love to come back on so we can talk some more if the opportunity arises. And I know we've met online. We haven't met in person, and I feel like you're my soul sister. And I'm holding hands with everybody in circle right now, for everybody who's listening into this, and know that you have a sisterhood, and know that you have the love and support, and that it's okay to ask for help.
Yes. Breathing that in. And imagining that we can look around the circle into each other's eyes and into your eyes. And I do want to thank you again for saying yes, and for sharing generously and intimately and bravely just about your own journey. That is always a gift. And I want to remind listeners that your website is Transformational Goddess Retreats.com. And I, of course, want to thank you, our dear listener, for being with us today, and to remind you, as always, to trust what your heart knows.
Thanks for listening to Trust Your Sacred Feminine Flow with Joni Advent Maher. If you like what you heard, the best compliment you can give us is to share our podcast with a friend and subscribe, rate, and review our podcast at iTunes.